Good morning and welcome to the Thursday, March 21st, 2024 Electoral Area Services Committee meeting. I would like to call this meeting to order at 9:30 a.m. right on time and acknowledge that the Sunshine Coast Regional District is within the territories of the Shishal Nation and Skohomish Nation. Director Lee, could you turn on your camera so we can all see your friendly face? Thank you very much. Good morning, staff. Good morning, directors, and a special welcome to alternate director Hardy, who's sitting in today for Director Bax, representing Roberts Creek. We have an agenda before us. Would directors like to make any changes to this agenda? Okay, a resounding no. On that, I would look for a motion to adopt the agenda as presented. Moved, seconded. I will call the question. All those in favor? That carries. Here we are on a roll. So, no presentations, no delegations. Takes us straight to reports. So we'll start with item. Oh, yeah, okay. Thank you, Director McMahon. Director McMahon, moving to receive all reports. Can I get a seconder for that? Yeah, awesome. I'll call the question. All in favor? Perfect. So all reports have been received. So item number 2, that is Annex A, pages 3 to 18, an OCP amendment and zoning bylaw amendment for 1691 Jensen Road, consideration of first reading. Would staff like to introduce this item? Oh, Manager Jackson, you're right there in front of me. Hello.
Chair. Sorry, a little echo here. All right, hopefully that's a little better. Sorry about the technical difficulties there. The SCRD received OCP and zoning bylaw amendment applications for a 0.3 hectare non-agricultural land reserve, or ALR, portion of 1691 Jensen Road in Area F, West Howe Sound. The applicant's ultimate proposal for the property is to subdivide into 2 parcels such that a new property line would follow the boundary between the ALR and the non-ALR portions to facilitate future residential development of the portion outside of the ALR. Overall, to implement this proposal, a total of 4 planning applications are required, each with its distinct approval processes: OCP amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, and subdivision and development permits. The process for considering this proposal begins with the current applications to change the OCP land use designation from agriculture to residential and zoning from agriculture to residential 1, and the subdivision district from I, which is a minimum of 4 hectare parcel sizes, to C, which is a minimum of 0.2 hectare minimum parcel sizes. Staff recommend that the OCP Amendment 640.6 and Zoning Bylaw Amendment 722.6 proceed for first reading, and staff are here and happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this introduction, and big thank you for the report, very comprehensive. And I would look to the directors to see if there's any questions, comments. Director Stanford.
Thank you, Chair. I have a couple of questions for clarification, and then I wouldn't mind putting the recommendation on the table. Just to be clear, because this was quite a comprehensive report, we're just talking about the 0.3 hectare area in the diagrams. We're not talking about the rest of the property, and that the request is to move from an I to a C in subdivision designation. If I read C correctly, the minimum lot size is 0.2, so therefore are we looking at 1 parcel basically for one residence or associated residents?
Thank you for the question through the chair. So the particular portion that is under application is just a 0.3 hectare portion, and that is the portion of the parcel that is along the end of Newman Road. And so that particular portion is proposed at 0.3 hectares, which is actually above the minimum lot size, but it is 0.3 hectares, and the minimum lot size under subdivision district C is 0.2 hectares, so it couldn't ever be divided into more than 1 parcel. It would only ever be 1. It's just an oversized parcel under subdivision district C. that helps clarify. Thank you.
Other question, Director Stanford?
Yes, I also have a question about, there was a comment from the Squamish Nation about protection of elk hunting areas. And I just wondered how, in general, how are property owners to accommodate or find the data on elk activities in the area? And then how does that then go to the Squamish Nation?
Thank you for the question, and a good question. So as part of our standard process for an official community plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment, we do refer to the local First Nations. This is certainly the first time that staff have seen this comment. We do not have any sort of development permit areas or other guidelines in our official community plan that specifically speak to this. So it's certainly a comment that we'll look to address with the applicant. And at this time, being first reading, it is early. We'll also have an upcoming public information meeting that's being scheduled with the applicant. We'll host that. And when we get that sort of full set of public feedback, including all the referral feedback, the applicant will work with staff to help determine how to best advance the application with considering the comments that have been received. Thank you.
I guess I would like to move the recommendations as presented on page 3.
And that is seconded. Oh, perfect. Moved and seconded. Awesome. Any further discussion, directors? Ready to vote? I'll call the questions. All in favor? That carries. Awesome. And that's one down. Thank you, Manager Jackson. Okay, well, now moving on to item number 3, which is Annex B, pages 19 to 44, development permit for 1041 Roberts Creek Road in the Electoral Area D. That would be voting all. Oh, hello. Senior Planner Kobervitz. Did I pronounce your name right? Oh, thank you. Would you like to introduce this item for us, please?
Thank you, Chair. I'll briefly introduce this item. This is a somewhat unique in that it's a development permit for form and character. The form and character guidelines are established in development permit area number 7 in the Roberts Creek Official Community Plan, and this particular proposal is to build an auxiliary community building on the lands that are occupied by the Gumboot Cafe at 1041 Roberts Creek Road. This is being undertaken by the One Straw Society as part of their One Farm project initiative, also on the property. And I think the rest of the application speaks to what the building is intended to look like. It's a fairly small-sized building intended for food processing, public education classes, just an additional community space to use on the property. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this introduction and for this, again, excellent report. I will look to the directors if there are any questions or if anyone's interested in making a motion. Oh, Director Lee.
Thank you, Chair. I was kind of curious what form and character means. In other words, does it have to look a certain way from the outside, or what the heck?
I'm happy to answer that and speak to that. Essentially, yes, it can include the appearance of buildings. It also includes, or the legislation is intended to ensure that where local government wants development to look, feel, integrate with the community in a certain way, that there be guidelines established that will guide that development. So often you'll see it in certain type of roof lines, certain type of finishing materials. It's not intended to be overly prescriptive in that you can say this brand of siding, but you can certainly have guidelines that would say incorporating natural materials and things like that. So that's what you find in this form and character. It can also typically address things that building permits can't address. So landscaping outside of a building, you'll typically find guidelines around that. And to add, they're only applicable to commercial intensive residential and industrial developments. So in this case, it's considered a commercial development.
And that's in the individual OCPs then?
Not all OCPs have form and character development permit areas. We do have them in Area F for industrial areas and in Roberts Creek in the downtown village area for form and character.
Okay, that's why I wasn't familiar with it. Thank you.
All right, Director McMahon.
This is just a curiosity question, but looking at the map presented and then going to our online mapping system, the Gumboot Cafe appears to have a funky relationship with the property lines in that area. How does that work if your existing building is actually partly on somebody else's property?
It's definitely a storied history on this property. The building you're referring to, the original post office and things like that, were built at a time where property lines might have been suggestions rather than surveyed appropriately. So in a case like this, it's a private property issue around encroachment. Unless we were dealing with a permit specifically for that building, it wouldn't be rectified. This may have been dealt with in the past. I'm not sure. There may be a variance that it was issued for that building to allow it to encroach right to the property line. Thank you.
Follow up, Director McMahon.
And how often, if I'm in the base map and then I can switch, I love this system, to the satellite imagery, and the satellite imagery shows more buildings than the base map does. So how often do we update that, or would you know that because you're not the GIS department?
I would defer that to the GIS department.
Thank you, staff. Director Lee, another question?
Yes, what caught my attention in the pictures was that it appears to be built on, I would guess, wood pillars. Is that correct? Is this is in fact a trailer then?
Those are not final construction plans, and per building code, the building would have to be anchored into a proper foundation. So it may be cable anchoring, similar to what you'd see on a mobile home, but it will have to meet building code and structural engineering standards.
Thank you. That's another day. Great.
Great, thank you. Alternate Director Hardy, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, thank you. I would like to move the recommendations as they appear on page 19.
And that is seconded by Director Stamford. Any further discussion on this item, directors? All right, sounds like we're good. So I'll call the question. All in favor? And that carries. Wonderful. Thank you, staff. And I know this was a quick turnaround, so thank you for helping out One Straw Society. All right, moving on. Number 4, that's Annex C, pages 45 to 57. Looking at a development variance permit for 5544 Sunshine Coast Highway, which is in Electoral Area B. So, given this is A, okay, here we go. Who's going to introduce this for us today? Oh, well, thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I'll speak to this briefly as well. This is a variance permit to accommodate a new building that's being proposed through a partnership with Sechelle Nation, Vancouver Coastal Health, and a Indigenous-led healthcare society. In order to accommodate this building, several variances are required. There's some unique historical context around the property that the Sechelle Hospital is located on. It does not have an appropriate zoning at this point. It has a default zone that sort of came with the property when it was incorporated into the regional district from what was previously Electoral Area C, I think. So it's zoned rural residential. It has a very low parcel coverage for an institutional use like a hospital. So through the years, as expansions have had to occur, variances were issued for parcel coverage being one of them. There are two further variances that are being requested for this project, one of them being the setback to the highway. We currently require 5 meters, and the applicants are proposing 4.5 meters, which is in line with the Ministry of Transportation standard setback for a highway. And finally, we are looking to waive the requirement for additional parking at this time. The provision of parking on the property is a known constraint at the Seashell Hospital, but staff feel it would be better dealt with in a more comprehensive way as we move into the future and establish a better suited institutional zone for that property. And that's something we've discussed with Vancouver Coastal Health and would hopefully be done in the near term. And then look at providing a sufficient amount of parking, working in partnership with the Seashell Nation that are also aware of this issue and have offered some overflow parking in the adjacent Sainco shopping center parking lot as well. So I'm happy to answer any further questions on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that introduction. Given that this is a DVP, I have to read a little something here. Having heard staff's introduction of the proposed development variance permit, if there is anyone in the webinar audience or in the boardroom wishing to speak to the application, we ask that you raise your hand. If attending virtually, please use the raise hand tool or *6, and I will unmute you in the order of hands raised. When you speak, please give your full name and, if you wish, your address for the record. In order to keep our meeting moving, we ask that you please keep your comments focused and limit them to 3 minutes. Once the committee has heard from all those wishing to speak, we will proceed with a motion and discussion toward a recommendation to the board. So, would anyone in the gallery like to speak? No, no one online. Okay, so I think we'll go straight to questions from directors. Director McMahon.
I'm always learning interesting things about the SCRD. I did not know our hospital was in Area B. So there was some background here. It fell short of an actual explanation. And perhaps some other time later we could engage in some speculation as to how this unusual situation came about. Other than that, though, of course, if the hospital needs a new facility, we're going to support it. Since the Area B director is a little busy right now, I would be happy to move the recommendations on page 45.
And that is seconded. Excellent. Any further discussion? Awesome. We'll call the question. All in favor? And that carries. Oh, we're moving at the speed of light. Excellent. So, moving on. Item 5, that is Annex D, pages 58 to 65. Another development variance permit, this time for 3424 McNair Forest Service Road. That is in Electoral Area F, and I'll be voting all. New person. Hello. Planning Technician Rajala. Ryala. Okay. Could you introduce this item? Are you the one to introduce this item today?
I will, yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, so the purpose of this development variance permit application is to increase the maximum height of all buildings and structures from 11 meters to 14.5 meters to permit the construction of both a chipper and debarker structures as an addition to the existing mill operation. Staff have evaluated the requested variance based on the board's DVP policy and recommend issuance of the permit. Staff are happy to answer any questions or concerns.
Thank you very much. Corporate Officer, do I have to read the script again?
That would be proper procedure, Chair.
Okay, let's do the proper way. Having heard staff's introduction of the proposed development variance permit, if there is anyone in the webinar audience or in the boardroom wishing to speak to the application, we ask that you raise your hand. If attending virtually, please use the raise hand tool or *6, and I will unmute you in the order of hands raised. When you speak, please give your full name and, if you wish, your address for the record. In order to keep our meeting moving, we ask that you please keep your comments focused and limit them to 3 minutes. Once the committee has heard from all those wishing to speak, we will proceed with a motion and discussion toward a recommendation to the board. Okay. Anyone in the gallery would like to speak? Okay, you'll have to come to the microphone so that everyone can hear you online. Thank you. And if you could introduce yourself, that would be fantastic.
Hi, Mark Dobbs. I'm project manager for Paper Excellence on the Bayview Fiber project, and just wanted to comment that there are existing structures on the property that are up to 22 meters high currently. On the adjacent property, which is almost on our property line, there are gravel silos from a previous operation there that are 19 meters high. So I just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. All right, Director Stamford.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a couple of comments. It is always interesting to see things come forward from this part of Area F because we don't get to see a lot of what happens in this area. So in general, it would be a good idea for us to have more information about what happens in the hillside area because it is a big part of our community and has impacts on our community. One of the questions I have is there an increase in noise when building higher for these kinds of structures they have a specific performance? And I'm just wondering if the noise will increase in the area because of that.
That's a fair question. Manager Jackson?
Thank you. Staff don't have specific information on the noise that would be generated based on the height. There's been no acoustical engineering work done to verify that. We would note that this is an industrial area, and these are the type of uses that we see. If there was a situation where there was, adjacent residential uses and it was sort of a one-off industrial property, it might be more appropriate to sort of think about the acoustical effects on a neighbor as part of the variance. But as part of the putting together of this report, staff felt that it was a part of an overall agglomeration of industrial uses, and so that it was suited to the overall area and appropriate. Hope that helps. Thank you.
Thank you, Manager Jackson. Director Lee?
Thank you, Chair. I understand there used to be a chipper operation in that area. Is it still there, or is this replacing the original chipper operation? Or that's a tough question, of course, but doesn't really matter. Mostly a curiosity.
I'm looking around the room, and I don't think staff have a specific answer to that. There's quite a few uses going on in the hillside area, and we aren't totally sure, not having business licenses, exactly which operations are up and running at a given time.
Oh, Mr. Dobbs, would you like to answer that question? If you could come to the mic, you'd have to come to the mic again. You have to work for it.
Thank you. Yeah, there is a portable chipper in the area, but there hasn't been a permanent chipper to my knowledge in that area anyway. Both Avalon and the former Coastland Bayview site that we're currently on have had portable chippers on them, but our site currently doesn't have one.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Dobbs.
Thank you, Chair. My cousin used to operate that portable chipper, so
Personal.
the point is that this is not a new business in that area.
Great. Awesome. Thank you. Director Stamford, did you have another question?
I was going to move the motion if there was no other questions. I'd like to move the motion as recommended on page 58.
And I have a seconder for that. Excellent. Any further discussion on the item? Looks good. I'll call the question. All in favor? And that carries. Perfect. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Dobbs. All right, moving on to number 6. That is Annex E, pages 66 to 69. That will be voting B, D, E, F, and that is an SCRD partnership agreement renewal with the Sunshine Coast Disc Golf Association. I have the manager of Park Services here. Oh, I have someone. Yes, corporate officer.
Thank you, Chair. I just would like to correct the voting for item number 6. Area A is also part of the Community Park Service. So voting will be all electoral areas.
Perfect, so I'll be voting all. Director Lee, be ready. Manager Huntington, would you like to introduce this item for us, please?
Yes, good morning, thank you. This staff report is related to the renewal of the SCRD Sunshine Coast Disc Golf Association Partnership Agreement. Parks values and appreciates the support of our partner community groups for stewardship and enhancement of park services. Relationships such as these can improve services offered, provide community value, and help engage the community in our parks in active, healthy, and meaningful ways. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Manager Huntington. Director Stanford.
Just to make sure, when the plans for an expansion of the disc golf are considered, will that be coming back to the board so we can see what's happening?
Yes, thank you for the question. As outlined in the report, any considerations for future expansion of the disc golf course would come back for board consideration at a future date.
Thank you. Director McMahon.
Right. So is this a clip? And if it is a clip, could you tell us a little bit about clips? And including what CLIP stands for, because I can't remember.
Community-led project, is that correct? All right. Project.
Thank you,
Oh,
and
there's-
very good, Director Gabius.
Is the I just there to make it sound nicer?
Community-led initiatives,
Okay.
proposals, or
Okay,
projects.
well, I got it wrong. Okay, great.
Yeah. Yes, it could come forward as a clip to help staff better understand the scope of the proposal. And it also, a clip is intended to help a community group understand the implications and sort of regulatory requirements, everything that would need to be considered for a project or proposal for an activity or a service to take place in SCRD parks. It's intended to help with the planning process for a community group that may not perhaps have a sense of the full extent of the considerations that need to be addressed when bringing forward proposals such as this. That's the intent of a clip.
Follow up, Director McMahon?
So just as a hypothetical example, if a group of parents in Wood Creek Park wanted to refresh the playground equipment in Whispering Firs Park, could they put together a CLIP proposal and submit it to the SCRD?
Thank you for the question, and yes, that would be an appropriate application, CLIP application.
Yeah, it would be, I couldn't find it on our website, so it would be nice to have some information about clips on the website where it's accessible. Thanks.
Thank you, Director McMahon. Director Stanford, GM Gagnon.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Manager Huntington. That's a great answer. I just want to suggest that one of the reasons perhaps that we haven't communicated this at large is that it's not just a simple application process. It's we meet with the individuals, we work through what exactly people are looking at, because oftentimes what happens is it's a community idea, but it's not necessarily a community-led initiative. So oftentimes the community has ideas of enhancements that they want or park service level improvements that they want, but they want the SCRD to do that. That's not a community-led initiative. So we really try to make this a collaborative process, and one of the first steps is staff meets with the community members that are bringing forward these ideas to really flesh through and use the processes that we have in very draft form around community-led initiative program to be able to see if it's going to be community-led or if it's an SCRD initiative. And we really work through the process that way. And in all cases, they need to come back to the board for final approval because it's a service level change or what have you. So it's not necessarily as easy as just putting a clip application up on the website, but certainly communication around collaborative initiatives is important. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. Follow-up, Director McMahon?
Yeah, I just, an example, I think, of a very successful community project was the playground at Cedar Grove Elementary, which is on SCRD property. But the initiative was done by the parents at Cedar Grove Elementary, and it is an absolutely outstanding playground. It has my partner's granddaughter's stamp of approval.
That says lots. Thank you, Director McMahon. Director Stanford?
I'm going to make a recommendation, but I also would like to just point out that this is one of the first active events that came up in Area F when I first became a regional district director. And the level of support and engagement about this particular project was incredible. I had never heard of disc golf. Now I know a lot more. And I'm really glad to see that we are able to move forward on this. And I think the community is excited to see how we can expand this recreational service. So looking forward to it. And on that note, I'd like to move the recommendations as presented on page 66.
And I have a couple seconders. Excellent. Any further discussion on the item? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that carries. Wonderful. Okay, and finally, item number 7, Annex F, pages 70 to 72. We're looking at the Roberts Creek APC meeting minutes. We have already received that as a report. I'd like to point out that there are a few recommendations in these minutes, and those will be brought back when we look at the item in question. So these are not gonna disappear. Any comments, questions about the minutes? Looks pretty good, and that's already been received. So we have no communications, no new business. We have no in-camera meetings. So I will be looking for questions from the attendees, but we do not have any. So that makes it simple. So I'll be looking for a motion to adjourn the meeting. That's moved. That's seconded. All in favor? Amazing. Thank you, everybody.